don't think packet.
Only Jade.
Unless it means drugs. Wait, does packet mean drugs?
Hello, there's only 2 phones in the case and some in your hands. If you could please put them away.
Oh yeah, packet of paper.
Thank you so much.
So you just need
I gave it to the.
You did. It was actually in the room. It was in a different file. I found it like. To be honest, I found it like 2 seconds.
You gotta teach them face to face. Yeah. She's an ice cream on.
What happened to the one that we had?
Damn, we need to bring it back.
That's why I stole it. I want a pen. I can give you a pen. Yeah, I want a pen. You want a pen?
It gets too
Yeah, ask Tyler for a pen. We'll give you a pen. I have a pen. No, I don't have a pen.
No, here you go. And this is
However,
Theo Barnett's pencil.
Great. Oh, I do have a pen. You want it? You want my pen?
No. I have a new pen.
He's not looking at you.
however,
Just give it us. Just give it.
You come to boarding room.
What up, bro? It's you.
okay, sorry about the delay. The printer's not working. I was figuring out a way around that. We're starting mutations today. Which can be as prosaic as apparently a 5-legged goat. Now that we have AI, there's a lot more mutations apparently appearing online. Of course, the mutants. Is Spider-Man a mutant?
No. You got bit by it.
He got bit by a spider, so he's not a mutant.
I got it.
Yeah, thank you.
But some of them have like 8 legs.
But some of them have 8 legs.
Yeah.
Who has 8 legs?
And like the Spider-Verse.
Oh, the Spider-Verse. Yeah. Well, some of those might be mutants, because who knows how he got his powers in some universes. Also, the idea that if there's an infinite number of universes, then there's every possible variation is also incorrect. You can have infinite number of things, and they all can be kind of the same. They don't actually have to change. The amount of numbers between 1 and 2 is infinite, and the same as the amount of numbers between 1 and 100. The nature of DNA is not permanent. It obviously changes. Otherwise, we wouldn't be sitting here. We would still be sitting on a rock somewhere in some sort of primordial sludge. The primordial sludge apparently descended from the heavens, quite literally. In the last 10, 15 years, we've made a fair amount of progress in determining that quite a lot of organic material is just made in space. It's not great organic material, but it does accumulate, especially if you're, say, a planet in which there is no organic stuff to eat it. And so we have found whole amino acids, a variety of ring structures, and guck. And so that accumulates. As long as you get something that's self-replicating at one point, we're going to kick that part off. However, that doesn't leave fossils. So far, this is just educated guesswork. When you have a persistent change in DNA, what do we call that? Mutant. So mutation. You probably have 2 to 3 mutations compared to your parents. They're probably in a non-coding or largely benign area, or they're just waiting to spring out from you. There are some relatively small types where you just change a single base, and you can have mutations where you change the entire chromosome. So, for example, let's quickly. And what do you mean no internet connection? Is that what the problem is? Yeah. Say presenter here, and I'll quickly go through the list. Alex?
Yeah.
Aria? Ariel?
Yeah.
Charlie? Zhao? Guy?
Yeah.
Isaac?
Yeah.
That took a while. Isabel? Jessica? Katie? Kiona?
Yeah.
Natsuho? Sihu? Sterling? Jaden? Tyler?
Yeah.
Okay, random. Isabel, what is the start codon for protein synthesis? AUG, genius, is done. And Tyler, give me another codon.
Another codon?
Yep,
CCG.
CCG, excellent. And Charlie, one more. CAG, perfect. Now everybody, I want you to look up what amino acids those code for. Fast, fast, fast. You got a data table?
I don't have
What? Why don't you have a data table? Mm-hmm. Second one is proline. So we got a pro and CA. What?
Glutamine.
This one's glutamine.
Just right, bro. CAG. Glutamine.
Glutamine.
gluten.
Glue. What's AUG?
Methionine.
Methionine. Excellent. So, single point mutation. I could just take out that and make it G. Now what is it?
Whatever you're looking for, CG.
So it's CGG. What is that now?
Arginine.
Right. So that is a single point mutation. And our little tiny snippet of a polypeptide, it's only 3 peptides long, maybe that won't even make that much of a difference. Maybe it will. It's definitely a change. Let's see if I picked the right one. What if I change this one to a C? CGC.
It's the same.
Which same?
It's
Arginine, yeah. So you can have point mutations that do nothing. You can have point mutations that actually change it. But they change one thing. If we delete the whole end of the chromosome, however, chromosome deletion will delete a ton of genes. That may have some rather spectacularly bad effects. And even having extra genes, if you have a duplication of anything, might create a lot of side effects as well, because now you have more product being produced. Growth rates are going to happen at the right way. Things are going to start and stop at the right time, and so it's going to have a lot of impact there. Now, in most organisms, the rate of mutation is low. As humans who reproduce relatively slowly, we need it to be actually relatively high compared to other organisms. But at the same time, we reproduce slowly, so if it kills off our offspring, that's bad. And so we have gotten around the fact that our mutation rate can't be super high with sexual reproduction to produce offspring that are different from ourselves. But bacteria that can reproduce every 20 minutes, they have relatively high mutation rates because, you know, if a few of the offspring die, who cares? You're making thousands of offspring.
Our rate of mutation is so low than how
Luck and deep time. Comprehending the amount of time that it takes is, I think, one of the difficult parts, because it isn't all that low when you consider time. We're talking a long, long time to make human generations go by. And the mutations that happened, if they are bad, that just means one individual didn't survive. If one is good and it turns out to be persistent, that can spread incredibly rapidly, and some of the mutations that have happened seem to have created rather rapid changes from a time basis, not an individual generation basis. If I go to, as an example, no, don't have any pictures. And it also doesn't talk about her work. A little bit, but there's a nice little picture there. Well, I can see if I can get another one. Okay, if you type Fox Russian mutation pictures, you get a lot of AI. Sentence. I mentioned her before, I think. Fell out of favor after the Russian Revolution with the ruling party. And so thought it would be a great idea to skedaddle up to Siberia and maybe do biological experiments on a fox farm. So they had a fox farm that they bred for their fur, and they would sell their fur. So it was a perfect opportunity, because most of them are going to die anyway, to start breeding them for a variety of traits. How long would it take to go from foxes, wild, feral, to puppies? The difference between domestication and wild isn't a matter of taming. If you tame a wild creature, you have not domesticated it. This is why having tigers in your home is so freaking dangerous, and why you can't really housebreak, quote unquote, a chimpanzee. They're wild. They have wild instincts and wild responses, and you can't tame that out of them. A domesticated animal is one in which they have been bred out. And so they are actually much, much more safe to be around humans. A chimpanzee, when startled, even if you've been around it for 15 years and it knows you really well and you're good friends, will rip off your arm out of panic because they're that strong, and that's what they do when they're panicked. It doesn't matter how long you've known them or their feelings towards you. Similarly, a tiger will eat you if it gets hungry enough. Although that being said, I'm not entirely sure with domesticated cats. Pretty sure they'd eat us too if they became hungry enough. They're just too small. There is an argument that we didn't domesticate cats. Cats domesticated us. But that aside, so she did, and it was a really short number of generations. It was like 3 or 4 generations, and she went from single-colored, easily identifiable foxes to floppy-eared, tail-wagging, multi-coated dogs that were eager for human attention and were domesticated. And it turned out that actually was a few point mutations on one particular chromosome. It's actually not a very long hop. Some of the reasons for human evolution one of the things that happened, we think, is a sort of sexual selection in which some, not that many mutations allowed us to grow a big brain faster than we normally would, or it was selection pressure. And when I talk about sexual selection, I'm talking about things like the peacock's tail. Why does a peacock have a beautiful, beautiful tail?
Track. Or no, female.
Yeah.
Doesn't it like show that it's healthy?
Yeah. And why? Because yeah, I mean, you look at that and really, who wouldn't look at that and go, oh yeah, that's what I want to have sex with? Because it's just beautiful. It's just beautiful. Great. It's a bunch of eyes just staring at you. You're looking at it and going, yeah,
Oh, yeah.
that's the man I want. They live in forests with tigers. That absolutely slows them down, and you are more likely to be eaten if you have a large tail. Now, is that actually what they're for? I mean, maybe they have the tails for another person. Why do we think that? They've done experiments where they took a poor peacock and they cut off about half of its eyes, and then they glued it onto another peacock's tail. The one that had the artificially enhanced peacock's tail got a lot of action that breeding season. And the poor one that they're all cut off, no action at all. And they can consistently repeat this experiment. So yeah, the peacock's tail seems to be an example of what we now call sexual selection. This is actually one of the fundamental Darwin himself wrote about this as a, like, why is there a peacock's tail? Because it was really hard to understand something that actually can kill you. How can that be beneficial? How can that be beneficial?
Make more babies.
Well, no, if they're attracted to it, yes, you'll have more babies. Why would they be attracted to it in the first place if it's going to harm all of your male babies? Like, it's easy to understand once it gets there. Why would it get there in the first place? They are actively more likely to be eaten by tigers.
Watch this.
Yeah, yeah.
Because there's like less of them, so they're more appealing.
It's a rarity thing. No, no. If you are selecting for something that makes your offspring less likely to survive, you're just not that bright, and your line will probably die out.
Does it show health?
It shows health.
Isn't that it's the same thing with like hummingbirds, right? Where
Yeah.
they see how long they can fly.
Yep.
And they choose like, when it flies the longest.
If
Maybe he's reading.
if you are so healthy
Oh wow.
that you've survived to the breeding the breeding season with this big of a tail, you must have an incredible immune system, an incredible circulatory system. What the peahens have figured out is that that's a good marker of health. So if you pick a peacock with a huge tail, that shows you that there is good health there and your offspring will be strong. So it actually turns out to be a great indicator. Lots of species have these. Hummingbirds' ability to fly without landing, the loudness of a bullfrog's roar, and it has been proposed that that's what happened to humans. We do a lot of what we would consider really useless things with our brain that don't directly contribute to our survival. Because if you're in the cave saying, you don't understand, I have to finish this painting, and you're doing stuff in the cave wall and you're not going out to hunt, that's actively bad for your survival. But then later on when you say, hey, want to come up and see my etchings? It turns out that is a really good indicator of how much blood supply, immune system, how good is your brain. And your brain is good for lots of things. Art is a way to show off how good your brain is.
So the girl caveman would pick the guy with the best painting?
Well, I don't know, maybe he made little mud statues, who knows? But there's a lot to indicate that our brain is a product of sexual selection. When sexual selection picks on a trait that actually is a good indicator of health and ability, it doesn't have to be like circulatory system, it could be just, your brain is obviously a really good system for lots of things. So once it picks up that, those things tend to expand rapidly, like the tail, or the bullfrog, or the ability for a hummingbird to sit in mid-air and not move and flap its wings like a helicopter. All of those are a product of sexual selection. And it looks like our brain did that relatively rapidly. So in one sense, yes, from a generational perspective for humans, it's slow. But from a time, if you just watch generations go by, it's relatively quick. There were Neanderthals when there were woolly mammoths. And there were woolly mammoths when they were building the pyramids. There's not that much, although we might have, sexed the Neanderthals to death. So, well, they were really attractive, apparently,
Oh, yeah.
because we can find their DNA, like, in us. So when we met them, we used to think, like, that early humans might have killed all the Neanderthals. Apparently, we just really enjoyed each other a lot. And they might have ended as a species because there was just so many of us, like rats, overcoming everything. That they were very slow reproducers, would have like 2, 3 children, whereas we would have like 8. So we just wiped them out that way. Yeah. Yeah. So in one sense, rapid. In another sense, from a personal point of view, probably slow. But it never underestimate what time can do if you have multiple generations to do it with. And even though most mutations are also obviously bad, if you make a mistake in something, it's very rare that it works better. But as long as you're willing to throw off all the things that don't work and just keep the ones that do, which is what happens with evolution automatically, it is the ultimate algorithm. So this is the only source for new information. Oh, hold it. I think information was supposed to go on the next one. I'll just reverse them. The first one was supposed to be the only source for change, then information, but it works the other way around.
Wait, what?
I also, there is something known as social Darwinism, and its most benign form. It's when you try to explain everything from an evolutionary perspective, like the reason people gather around their laptop to watch whatever streaming service they're watching while eating food is because it mimics the campfire that people used to gather around to eat food, and that's that's all mostly nonsense. The reason that women have these traits, which are perfect for taking care of babies, and men must have, most of that is nonsense. Culture does almost all of that. The biological stuff obviously is true, but the rest of it is guesswork, just so stories, where we take something that already occurs and we try and backtrack it. Evolution changes your genes. It may support certain traits, but on that kind of a level, it's given us a brain to do all sorts of things. The other part of it, where you can see it, is that when people talk about evolution, this is all the way back to like the 1940s version, is like, obviously evolution is supposed to be taking away the bad ones. So let's, hurry that process up a little bit. We shouldn't necessarily be supporting those in our society who aren't as good as things. And that is, if you look at the science, the direct opposite of what you do to be a successful species. The more genetic variation you have as a species, the higher your indicator of health. So the more members of your species that survive, the better off you are. Because if a member of your species can survive, even if they're a little worse off, then they have a variation that might be good for the future. Every variation is a potential solution to a future problem. So the more variation you have, the better. If there was a disease out there that would be survivable if you had type G blood, then humanity is toast, because we lost type G blood back in the great almost extinction event. If we still had that variation, we'd be better. Variation is key. There are people out there who are slightly more likely to get the flu, and the flu can kill you because of a variation in their CD5 protein structure on their T cells in their immune system. However, it does make them completely immune to HIV. wasn't a problem for human evolution for a very long time, until very recently. So having that variation around just provided a survival advantage. So all of those are good for us as a species. Now you can, I think when we're doing chromosomes, people are asking like, what happens if you remove a chromosome? Can you still survive? You can. It can have deleterious effects. This is one of the more extreme examples I could find. A lot of the times the pictures of children that have this, you don't actually really notice. Their eyes are a little bigger than normal, which just makes them look all the cuter. But they have some sear. Let's pull it up.
Your boys are staring at me, bro.
So if we delete part of the chromosome in this particular case, Wolff-Hirschhorn, I'm probably not pronouncing that right, chromosome deletion syndrome, partial deletion on the short arm of chromosome 4. Short arm is where you look at the central point, the centromere, and it has a short side and a long side, so they're talking about the short side. You get a distinct phenotype in the face and a severe intellectual disability. Their brain doesn't grow as much as it should as well. You also get heart defects and seizures, and so it can be quite hard to live in that particular way.
Wait, so people with big eyes have Wolff-Hirschhorn syndrome?
People with
Big eyes have that?
nope. You're going from one phenotype and saying everybody that has that. But a marker of this is an expanded forehead. But although there's not as much room for the brain, I think the top is lower, and big eyes. But that doesn't mean everybody with big eyes has that. You would know if you had that. So if all of a sudden you're worried that like, oh, my eye or my siblings, one of them has very large eyes and they're a little slow. No, you know it's a fairly deleterious thing. Although not with evolution, but. Come on. This.
Oh my god. It's just a bunch of memes. Oh.
Yeah, that's because Grayson's in Gap.
Also, never forget that everything we're talking about in terms of genetics, there are also environmental causes that have nothing to do with your genes. Fetal alcohol syndrome can actually produce an effect that it's a little similar. It doesn't have the same cranial changes, but it does produce children with slightly larger eyes than normal, and they have a different separation of the face. And once you learn to recognize it, it is almost unmistakable. If you have fetal alcohol syndrome, you probably don't know. You've just had anger problems since kindergarten. You have been diagnosed with ADD or ADHD, and you find learning difficult. And that's if you have a mild version. If you have a severe version, it's probably diagnosed. This is why, of course, you're not supposed to drink during pregnancy, because you don't actually know at what point you're going to be affecting the development of the child. There's days probably it would be fine. But it's a bit like building a house when you're 3D printing a child. So you get all the tradespeople in, they're building the house, and you throw a party, and all the tradespeople also drink and keep building while they're drinking. And it doesn't get built quite right. And the foundations are a little wonky. And so that affects how the brain develops, which leads to fetal alcohol syndrome. If you throw a party after the house is built, you are an adult. Yes, you may have knocked over a lamp or two, maybe even destroyed a wall, but that might be repairable. It is not repairable if you did it while building it. And that's an environmental cause that gives not the same condition, but sometimes a similar face structure. I know a person who didn't know that they were pregnant in university, and then later on, they were having lots of meetings with teachers, trying to figure out why their child's having such a difficult time in school. And then when I looked at their child's face, all of a sudden it clicked. Oh, I knew what she was doing at that time. She did not know she was pregnant, and realized, oh, they definitely have fetal alcohol syndrome. You can see it right in their face, and they have all the classic symptoms. And at that point, there is nothing you can do, because all the interventions you can do you're doing. You're diagnosing them with ADD or ADHD. You're giving them extra care and attention. You're teaching them how to control their temper. So there's nothing else. There's no cure for having built the house incorrectly, because it's already built. Point mutation. This particular mutation, it turns out if you have it, decreases your ability to get coronary heart disease. And if you have this particular gene variant, it's 1 point mutation. You can, eat fast food most of your life, and you might be fine. You might never get a heart attack, and you might never have to worry about it. And that's 1 point mutation. Now, does it have other effects? I think so. They think if you went through periods of famine, you might be worse at extracting energy from your energy stores. And so actually, for most of human history, it might have been a little bad to have it. But right now, if you live in a place where there's plenty of food and you're eating fast food, it's good. So point mutation, random mutation, that gives people a better survival ability. However, probably won't spread that quickly. Why wouldn't it spread that quickly? You can live from, instead of your 50s to your 80s, what good is that? Yeah.
Is it because it's like you can produce more kids?
Can you produce more kids?
No, is that why?
Yeah, you need a way for your children to survive more. If you die earlier and give them your inheritance, they might actually do better. Which is why there might be actually a clock in your chromosomes counting down to make sure that you pass on. There we go. Mutation qualities. First type, neutral mutations. These have no effect on an organism. That's written weird. A phrase you'll hear is junk DNA. I put it in quotes because we continuously find more and more functions for the junk. It may never be red, which is actually what I should probably put there. So it's never translated to protein. So it was considered junk. And it turns out some of it has regulatory structure, so it may never be read, but it affects how often something else is read. And so that's actually a purpose, so it's not quite junk. Some of it might genuinely, in fact, a lot amount of it might actually genuinely be junk, but we just have to put it in quotes because you never quite know. But if it's never read, then a change there is probably not going to do any harm to you. Also, you may have mutations that are like, they change something, but they don't change anything that matters. And so at that point, you have like what's formerly called genetic drift, where isolated populations may change coat colors, shapes of various parts. As long as they don't affect anything, that might just be how that population changes due to chance. Why would I put that next to a picture of noses?
Because different noses doesn't affect like the way that you breathe.
Yeah, human noses are pretty useless to begin with. Changing the outside shape doesn't really affect anything. You might affect how attractive you are, but then again, people's attraction is weird. Whatever someone isn't attracted to, someone else probably will be, so it's not going to affect you too much. You know, unless you decide it's weird and then do weird things.
With the nose.
For years, we were trying to invent male birth control. And now finally we've succeeded. Thank goodness for the Cybertruck. Okay, so yeah, small variations, nose shape, whether your middle toe is longer than your big toe. Yes?
When you said male birth control is having a Cybertruck, is
Yeah.
it because if you have a Cybertruck, you get no girls?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Sort of like the opposite of a peacock style.
Puzzlers? Is that a word? Puzzlers? Yeah, I just said that. Puzzlers.
I mean, most things that people assume matters usually doesn't, although people will think it does. You can find forums online where groups of people will complain about their body attributes and the size of things or tallness of things or a variety of things, and what people like or don't like. And it turns out that if you dwell on those, yeah, that's probably true. If you don't dwell on those, there are billions of people out there. There's somebody, provided you have a working brain and can demonstrate them in some way. That seems to kind of work. So get involved in your etchings. Positive mutations. Now we don't, that 1 point mutation for heart disease, we have a few in humans that might be currently occurring, that might be affecting it. It might be having elderly grandparents helps raise the children. Certainly that was historically true. Having older age people helping take care of the younger people certainly increased their chances of survival. And even now, there's a lot of working parents who, if it wasn't for the grandparents babysitting the children while they were at work, their ability to make a living probably would have been decreased. So yeah, longer lived parents, maybe that will spread. So positive mutations, they are quite rare. The chance that you make a change in an instruction set and it turns out to be better is low, but as if you keep doing it, eventually you're going to get one that works. So it increases an organism's ability to reproduce. It improves a function of a gene by causing it to create an improved protein. What evolution focuses on oops, why did I put a G there? And this was made famous by a English biologist by the name of Richard Dawkins, who focused on the fact that a lot of biology focuses on the whole organism. But he said if there's a gene that causes it to spread more of its copies at the expense of the individual organism, that still works and it will still do that. And so you could imagine a mutation in which, I don't know, you get green hair. But all green-haired people also have an instinctive impulse to save and help other people that have green hair, even at the expense of their own life. Very quickly, that gene itself would just spread. And genes like that have been found. And so when we're talking about evolution, we're often focused at the gene level. He also coined the term, the same scientist, meme, which you may be familiar with. What's a meme? What's a meme? You don't have to write down the word meme. My God. Oh, yes, I still have that. Nobody here has heard of a meme. It's a joke on an image. That's not its defining feature, though. What does the joke cause you to do? Spreads laughter. You copy it or send the link to someone else after you that was funny. I will show it to other people. And then you show it to them and they go, ha, 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 ha. I will also show this to other, and it spreads. Richard Dawkins came up with the term meme to apply to ideas or snippets of information that self-reproduce in the same way genes do. And it was a throwaway line in like the last chapter of his book, in which he talked about super meme complexes. So his more controversial section was like good knowledge, like say how to clean your kettle. He was British. Spreads because it is true and it is useful. But we can think of lots of things that spread that are neither true nor useful, but funny things spread because it makes you want to tell somebody. Conspiracy theories spread because it makes you think you're part of secret information. People like that feeling, and so they spread it. He talked about, in the controversial part, was like, perhaps religion is a collection of memes that makes you, they literally have in it saying, you should go tell other people and make them believe too. He got a little famous for doing that, and he wrote a few more books, and it was a little cottage industry for a while. And then now we refer to funny pictures we find on the internet. So, its similarity to gene is not an accident. He picked meme because it rhymed with gene, and it spread in a similar fashion. I don't know why he picked the M. It doesn't say in his book. He just thought meme, like mind or memory. Now, example one. What is the type of evolution that we're really worried about in bacteria? Antibiotic resistance. We now have triple and quadruple resistant bacteria where they're resistant to every known antibiotic. If you have a staph infection, for example, a staph infection literally tries to eat away at your flesh. They are quite susceptible to antibiotics, except they're also really good at evolution. And now we have staph infections that are immune to evolution. They took out the guy who invented Kermit the Frog and a variety of other people. The treatment for it, if you have an infection in your hand and it's antibiotic resistance, is you cut off your arm to stop it from spreading. Question? No. Are you sad that?
Yeah, they took out my boy Kermit, bro.
Well, they didn't. They took out Jim Henson, who invented Kermit. Yeah. He was like, I just have an infection. I'm going to the hospital. They say it's a little bad, but I'm sure I'll be fine soon. And then he died because the treatment is to before antibiotics, you wash your hands and your cuts carefully. Because if you got an infection and your body couldn't kill it, you just died. And that happened to a lot of people. Mortality rates were much higher before antibiotics. And then we found this really magic bullet in which someone noticed my samples of bacteria that I'm experimenting on some bread mold got blown in there. And look, the bread mold is killing the bacteria in rings around it. We should investigate and see what's doing that. And they found the first antibiotic. Very quickly, after the first antibiotic, was the first antibiotic-resistant, penicillin-resistant bacteria. Because if you kill off all the bacteria with penicillin, then bacteria that are not killed by it are going to spread faster, which is why if you have been given antibiotics, it is incredibly important that you take it on schedule, and if you stop, don't start taking it again right away. Go back to your doctor. You're like, I forgot for 5 days. I'll just start taking it again, and that would be a poor choice. Get a different antibiotic, because otherwise you might be breeding an antibiotic-resistant bacteria. So, for example, how often do you take antibiotics when you're prescribed them?
Once a day.
Once a day?
3 times.
Like 3 times usually.
What?
Because the amount of antibiotic in your blood does this over time, and then you have to take it in 8 hours.
Every 8 hours, yeah.
And then it goes down again, and then it goes up, and then it goes down. And you want to keep that level because this is the killing level, and this is the survival level. Because just like with any poison for humans, there's an amount of antibiotic that will kill the bacteria. Now instead, you take your antibiotic, but then you forget. And then you remember the next morning, but then you forget. But then you forget again, but then, now all of this period, which is now much longer, those bacteria are surviving. What you're doing here is, they're not all surviving. Like this kills 99% of them. This kills like, I don't know, 25%. You're just killing off the weakest ones. Your antibiotic is acting like a wolf on deer population by taking out the ones with the weakest genes. You are breeding for bacteria that are resistant to it. Now they're not completely resistant to it, but now they're more resistant than they were. And you have a population that is populated by those ones. And then when you do it again and you kill out the weakest one, you are now going through a selection process by which you are selecting the strongest and best bacteria for your antibiotic. And now they're resistant, and it doesn't matter how much you take, that infection is going to kill you. And then we go, oh God, that's terrible, don't do that again. And they would give you a different antibiotic. And then that one works. But eventually you run out of antibiotics. So we are hugely concerned about this. It turns out if we just stopped using penicillin for a while, we would get its efficacy back, because there's a cost to producing things to make you antibiotic resistant. We just have to convince the entire world to cooperate, and then that would work. So bacteria survive. They're no longer affected by the antibiotics. And bacteria produce so many copies of themselves. They have high mutation rates, and so it's constantly a worry. So we want to give you special care and attention if you have an antibiotic-resistant bacteria, because we really want to get that one. It's also why if you have a cold or a flu and it's viral, we don't want to give you antibiotics. What do antibiotics work on? Bacteria. Vaccines work on viruses. Antibiotics work on bacteria. So giving you antibiotics for a viral infection is just taking the chance that you'll increase the chance you'll get an antibiotic-resistant bacteria, because you have natural bacteria inside of you. And if you make them antibiotic resistant, they can actually give that trait to other bacteria. They're all big pals. Yeah.
Doesn't your blood cells produce antibodies or something?
Yeah.
Are those different than antibiotics?
Yes.
Okay.
Antibodies, if I was to draw one, we tend to draw them like this. And that's because they have a couple of arms. And so if you have a bacterium like this, or this is actually a virus, let's group that together. So how they're made by T cells, and how they work. This is like the best part of biochemistry. Is they attach to the virus, as we've discussed when we're discussing blood types. If you have an antigen, they're all just glomming on to the virus to whatever points they attach to. You can imagine that, I don't know, they have specifically are attaching to the round things, to the coat. And when they glob on, the other end signals to your immune system to come kill this thing and stick it, and they also stick with other bits, so it all becomes a mass. That's how you get blood clots if you do the other way. And it's actually fairly cool that if enough antibodies attach to like a whole bacteria, your body has a cell process, whereas it will come over and it will drill a hole in it and leak it out. It's like it's got a bullet method to kill the things inside of you. The problem with an infection is that some organisms, of course, are evolved to evade your immune system. And so they have a variety of ways, making new coats you haven't seen before. It's longer to respond to a new coat, which is why you keep getting the common cold, because it evolves new coats all the time. Or they're just extremely good at getting into other people. If you have the flu, you would give that flu an average to 1.2 to 1.5 people. Flus spread quickly, but when you think about, I would give it to like 1.5 people. That means once in a while I might give it to 2, and sometimes I give it to one other person. That's not that expansive of a spread. Measles, on average, someone infected with measles in an unvaccinated population gives it to 12 to 18 people. And so it moves fast, and that's where its success is. It finds people that are susceptible. DNA deletion at the human CCR5, I talked about this earlier. I think I said it was the CCD5, so my mistake, to homozygotes and delays AIDS in heterozygotes. So if you are a homozygote, what does this mean? What are homozygotes? Pardon?
People with the same genes.
Yeah, how many copies would they have?
2.
2 copies. So if we said that this DNA deletion CCR5, let's call this gene, okay, big C and little c don't work. Let's use the R. And so this is the mutation. Capital R would be the normal. That means you're immune. Heterozygotes, you at least delay it and you have a better chance of fighting it. Luckily, we invented not a cure, but a treatment for it that takes away a lot of the problems. You essentially just inject pure money into your blood, and then you're fine. So that helped anyone that has lots of money. And none of the countries where HIV is most prevalent. The treatment is just really expensive and requires a lot of synthesis of a lot of different drugs. It's a lot of theory today, so I'm going to stop there. I was meant to stop 10 minutes ago. My apologies. Give a 5-minute break. 5-minute break. Stand up. Move your legs. Isaac, I don't have your lab book.
Bro, didn't know. You're talking about Kermit.
Like your lab book. You bring it to class every day? You've had it the whole time? It was due before Christmas. I'm now almost done marking them. That's amazing. I'm so glad you had it. No, it's all good. Well, you weren't here for the lab quiz, so what I do in those cases is I mark the lab questions instead, which you did, so that's good. And, I should check if there's anybody else as well. Okay, everybody's still here. Did you at least stand up and move your legs? Yeah. That just helps blood flow. Excellent. So we got Tyler. gone, this would be a good time to announce, of course, you're gonna have a quiz at the end of the week on Thursday or Friday. And a test next week in all of biology.
So is that your phone? You got a packet, bro. Did you open your booster pack? Was that for your booster pack? Photo of I already did it.
Yeah, but Isaac said yours doesn't count.
Yeah, it doesn't.
What?
Isaac hasn't even done it.
It
But
was
it was
good.
half your face.
So I was still in it.
What are you playing now?
That's better than nothing.
Lock. All clear.
That game is far too addictive.
Yeah.
I know.
I find it unaddictive because I'm bad at it. Like I can't. I just don't get it.
When I was a small child, I played Tetris a lot. This game has no time limit, so I can sit and very carefully make every single move. Hours can go by. I uninstalled it from my phone.
What was your high score?
I didn't take.
Oh.
I didn't think you as a quitter.
No, I only played it for like 4 days. 27,000? No, but that's not high. Like
Yeah.
when I look at high scores,
Lucas Lynn has a million.
does it?
I have a picture. Hold on.
Holy crap, that's impressive. Kansas put that effort in science.
Yes. Is that a million? Oh yeah. Oh wait, no. He has 100K.
Buddy,
My God. I thought it looked really long. I think we should have.
hold it. It was 18.
I'm just being honest. Isaac, you're trying to take a photo. Take the photo.
Okay, Tito.
Everybody's
Actually, I didn't know what kind of format you guys wanted. You just said take it.
It was unclear with him, so we give him the pass.
Yeah.
And then it goes to you. It
I
goes to
didn't know
you.
that was an actual thing.
It goes to UIC and it comes back to me. It's a rotation.
Oh, really?
What?
It's a rotation.
Oh, so
Oh,
we're writing for.
Oh, it came from the factory, not too good. So very easy. So yeah, I know, it wasn't folded right to begin with, so you
Oh, she just folded it right?
I fixed it.
well done.
I can fix it. Rose fixed it. I can fix it.
Bye. Morning's epic rubbing duty are.
Impressive last.
And Pablo.
I remember your diet. I was
Said
working on
impressive.
that.
You're
On
not.
what? On what?
On that lab from before Christmas that I made you hand it in on the last day. I'm almost done marking it.
Oh, yeah.
Just did yours. The diagram's pretty good.
Is TK Hawk Victoria?
Oh, wait, also, if I wanna go into like biological sciences, what courses should I take?
Chemistry.
Yeah.
And then probably biology.
I thought you wanted
Talk,
to
no,
do
number one,
Yeah.
talk to Mr. Rodriguez.
Biological
Talk to Mr. Rodriguez, because things change all the time. But I have found in general, if you want to go into physics, chemistry. If you want to go into biology, take chemistry. The reason they do that is because biology requires a lot of memorization to begin with, especially at the lower levels. Physics, you can get by with a lot of math. Not much memorization, so they're kind of opposites. But later on, everything converges, whereas chemistry right away requires both.
I'm the only TK with a
Chemistry 11 has math, like word problem. You have to be great at that, but you have to understand basic algebra. Grade 10 algebra is fine for chemistry 11 and basically chemistry 12. So you don't have to be great at it, you just have to be not skilled at word problems, and you'll be fine. But they use it as a weeder course sometimes. Like if you can pass chemistry 11 and 12, obviously you can.
Who's the teacher that
Ms. Carroll and Mr. Snow have done it. I never have. I got my start at the school teaching set 5, science 10. We used to set them by ability. So I always taught the students that couldn't do math. They were very entertaining.
I will need to take physics. If I get like.
If you're going to the biological sciences, you probably won't. But if your ultimate goal is like, I want to do like nuclear radiation therapy, then yeah, you might want to do
What if it's like
Boring.
zoology. It's zoology.
So boring.
Zoology, probably basic biology, and you might not need chemistry at all. I just know the number of times that someone has needed chemistry has been surprising to me as a chemistry teacher. I'm like, what, you don't need to. One poor girl wanted to go to a very expensive, very elite
Isaac, I might ditch you for
hairdresser
James.
in France.
I might ditch you for James.
They required chemistry 11
Because apparently they're
Oh, yeah,
for
because
dilutions and
Oh, yeah, yeah,
bleaching.
yeah.
They go right into the science of it as well. After their school, apparently, like you could invent your own different types of conditioner and shampoos and a whole bunch of stuff. And she was not good at chemistry. She failed every test. She would give back the test and she would sit and cry. And then I would say, would you like to go out? Like, I don't have to give it to you in class. And she'd be like, no. She passed the final exam and passed the course. And then she got into her.
Is Thomas there?
But yeah, it was. But on the other hand, practically, you're given a recipe and you follow the recipe. You don't actually need chemistry. So I don't know all. Hold it! I'm way past 5 minutes. We're going to take the last 10 minutes and finish off. Please have a seat. Thank you for listening to this long lecture of definitions. Thank you. And now, maybe I'll
Your teammate.
What's up? We're going to continue in a moment. But as well, what's happening this Thursday or Friday?
What?
Ross Cup.
Oh,
No.
Ross
In
Cup.
Y'all come watch.
class, what's happening this Thursday or Friday?
Don't watch that.
Don't watch it. Don't watch it.
What happens every Thursday or Friday? You may have noticed.
Literally in the
You
afternoon.
did a quiz. What will the quiz be
Is there a
on?
bus to watch?
Nope.
I have to walk for it.
What worksheet have you not had a quiz on
Mike is such good at
I know, I'm
Yo,
trying.
wait.
Punnett Square.
Also, I don't know, like, I had a sick ass fight back there. Like,
Those are nice.
what?
I need your.
Those are nice.
Oh, did I rip yours?
Thank you.
Oh, sorry, I thought I ripped yours.
Yo, what?
It's still cute.
Tyler, what stick did you get?
Looks like my dog.
Wait, what? Oh, is it
So, this week's quiz is going to be a little different. I'm experimenting. The quiz will only be one Punnett Square. You may bring your worksheet, but there will be like 5 questions.
Oh.
You pick the question. The questions will be rated as to their difficulty. There'll be a developing question, there'll be a proficient question, and there'll be an extending question, and there might be variations in those. So the extending may be something you haven't seen before. Maybe, I don't know, a dihybrid cross of a particular complexity that incorporates codominance or incomplete dominance. Or maybe it will be a straightforward dominant recessive trait, but it will be a trihybrid cross. That requires you to come up with a percent ratios.
Wouldn't that be very big?
Pardon?
Wouldn't the square for that be very big?
Yeah, be like 64. Be amazing. But it's only one question.
That would be
a lot of
so
writing.
like high.
Whereas proficient will probably have a regular cross. It may have codominance or incomplete dominance in it. It'll probably be something you've seen before, but something that you can be proficient in. Developing might just be like, I don't understand these two, but I know something really easy that you can just show, like I've been paying attention and I can look at my worksheet and figure this out. I don't know yet whether or not I'd have a merging on there. I'm trying to figure out like what a question would that look like. I know genetics exist. I'm emerging. If you attempt a question and you get it perfect, then that's the proficiency you get. You might get variations of high and low, but you only have to do one. Yes.
The big test, like the unit test, is the week after.
The week after, you have a test. No worksheets allowed on all of biology.
What?
Yeah.
End of this week.
Yeah.
Wait, so like, not this week.
Not this week.
The next. The
Not
week.
next week. Oh, sorry. Not this week. Not this Thursday and Friday. Next Thursday and
Do
Friday.
you get the
Why?
Big
So
test.
in a week.
Are we doing?
Yeah, in a week.
Are we starting?
Oh no, a week and a half. 'Cause today's Monday.
Engineer?
Are we starting physics?
Light.
No, we don't start physics till 3rd term usually.
Oh.
In fact, most of the time, I haven't started physics until midterm 3rd term.
Is there not?
Term 2 is really short compared to term 1 and 3, so sometimes biology bleeds into the next term. Chemistry is the largest unit because it actually has 2 units in one. Biology has 2 units too, but they're much smaller. We're on the second one now. The first part won't take us very long. The first part is mutations, the second part is evolution, and I'm already talking about evolution and it won't take us too long. Maybe if we get through enough of it, I can put it on next week's quiz. Then we'd all be done.
Then we done it all of biology.
Yeah, all of biology does. All of biology.
And then we're ahead.
And then we're ahead. Then we're ahead. And we just watch movies. That would be science and ethics. Yes.
In the, like, in a week and a half.
You will get the data booklet. You will get the new version of the data booklet with the wheel on the back. Yeah. Yeah. And a reminder, although I do in fact, I really appreciate that Liam Baker made this picture of me and John Dalton. I'm not sure that looks like me. And it's very,
It doesn't have the buzz.
how do I say this? It's very Euro-Caucasian. I don't see a lot of like anything else. I look like the guy that would steal data from another person to take credit to invent DNA. That's who I look like. I look like Watson. So if you make up a new diagram, you could grace the cover of the next quiz. I want it to be science, include some biology and physics, and maybe slightly more diverse.
Really?
Put a rainbow in there somewhere.
Wait, this is the worksheet, right?
What?
Genetic cross.
Yeah, that's the worksheet. I'll be posting the answers like tomorrow. Yeah. Do you not have that worksheet? Okay. Okay. Oh, before I leave this slide, The reason why that mutation works, HIV has evolved to evade our immune system. It's very clever how it's done so. It's like if you wanted to take over someone's house and you did it by hiding in their attic rather than just like storming the front door. HIV works, by taking over the police station. You call the police and they show up and take over your house. Your immune system, this is a T4 cell. T4 cells are part of your immune system. They help attack other cells. It's exactly the cell that would kill HIV. However, HIV exists inside of it. And that's why it's so difficult to eradicate, because if you kill it, you kill your own immune system, which is why people with it eventually die of something else. So if you get HIV, you would die of a really bad form of pneumonia or types of cancer or other things because your immune system just collapses eventually. And any treatment also would kill your immune system. The reason that that particular variation stops it is because that variation is a protein that exists in there that makes it look different enough that HIV can no longer get inside. Okay. Last one. Negative mutations. And these are the vast majority. The vast majority of mutations are negative in some way. Isaac? They reduce an organism's ability to reproduce successfully. Harms the function of it. What is it always affecting? Rhymes with mean. Gene. By creating a less effective protein, or no protein at all, and giving the organism a disadvantage. Evolution can only work with what it has, and there's some things that just won't. Question?
No. Do you think Isaac will pass AP Physics?
Of course he will. Of course. Yes. Isaac, how's your math?
Pretty good, yeah.
Okay, see? You'll pass.
Yeah. Are you doing yeah.
How many of you are considering AP courses next year, now that you're selecting courses? AP courses, number one, they are usually not more cognitively difficult than regular courses. So if you can handle the complexity of a regular course, you can probably handle the complexity of the AP course. That being said, the jump in cognitive difficulty between grade 10 and grade 11 for all of them is a big leap. So they are all more cognitively difficult than they are this year. Chemistry this year, as a chemistry teacher, since that's the area that I'm most familiar with, is like, it's like baby talk. Like, it's like, oh, we balance an equation. Yay. Next year we go like, how much do we balance it by? If I have 5 grams of CO2, how many grams of O2 did I make? Please convert that into moles, use the ratio, put it across, get it all back, and then convert it into volume. If I cool it down to this temperature, how much smaller will that balloon be? There's a ton of math we introduce, and it becomes, quote unquote, a senior science. And it's just part of how the BC curriculum does things. They feed it to you in small, easily digested amounts up until grade 10, and then grade 11 they go, it's a senior science. That being said, you can definitely do it. You're in grade 11, your brain is complex enough, you'll be fine. The number one thing you need is a consistent work habit. If you have that, almost anybody can do AP. Students have dropped from AP down to regular and the grade doesn't go up. And in that particular case, it wasn't the problem wasn't the complexity, the problem was that that's just the level at which they understood the material. The difference between AP and regular is the speed. They will go through it a lot faster, so you have to be able to work independently, consistently. If you're not doing that now in all of your courses and you don't have that habit, start getting that habit now so you survive next year, and you'll be fine. Pardon? it made everybody really excited while I announced the test. And then nobody went, oh, there's a test. Most people went, yeah, I have a sticker.
So the sticker doesn't actually mean anything?
No, it's just like I gave you a sticker. Miss Legasic did positive reinforcement, like psychology, on her class so that they wouldn't be upset with you. She would put up like I think it was a C-3PO or R2-D2 robot with like little brain candies in it. The cast get really excited and she'd give them all candy. And then on the day of the test, she just put up a statue, didn't give them candy, and they were still happy while writing the test.
I'm taking online water.
Because she transferred the feeling to the statue.
So you don't need AP.
Thank you, Mr. Trump.
You're welcome.